project is resilience in the Arab world, it would have been better that somebody from the Arab League Council of Economic Council should have been represented. And to see whether they have already had something relevant to what we are talking about, which I doubted, unfortunately. The second comment, and this is for your ex-hat, Abdullah, that it is true. Unfortunately, and I'm afraid that not only that when we talk about humanitarian only support to Syria, that this makes more difficulty and reduce the potential of resilience in the future. And this is a big challenge that I would rather like not to see it. Inshallah, we don't see it. The third is a question to Khalida. You know, we all believe that we should work as partners and approaching resilience. Resilience can never be the potential or the capacity of one organization. When we are sitting here, it's easy. I mean, it's easy to access each other, but when it comes to reality, it's difficult. We have different mandates, we have different programming, we have different approaches. How to go further in this? Now we are in Yemen because I am there. We have already started with UNDP, with WFP and other organizations developing a resilience program for Yemen. We'd like to see how this challenge is going to be real. And the last question is really, we all believe that this is a question of policy at the end. If there is no decision, there's nothing going to happen on the level of all these countries, poor countries. How to approach really policymakers, decision takers, that we are really to address something that will take into consideration that this strategy is relevant to what priorities are in those countries. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Back in the back, please.
Simon Maxwell, the IFPRI board. These were brilliant presentations, and you've given me a crisis of confidence in the topic of the conference, which I would like you to respond to and help me if you can. If we'd been having this conversation 4 years ago, we would have been uniformly positive about the Arab Spring. And if someone had then said, the main cause of the Arab Spring, I'm leaving Syria out, is the food policy rise in urban centers of North Africa, Cairo and others. Food policy has caused the Arab Spring. We would have said, fantastic. That's really good. And what that makes me think is that the word resilience implies a kind of static status quo that is a very dangerous place for us to start from. We talk a lot about social capital. The mafia has a lot of social capital. So in a way, what we ought to be asking actually is how can we use food and nutrition policy in order to destroy resilience when resilience is not in the people's interest? And I'd just like you to sort of think through for me that scenario of how can we use food policy as a driver of change in countries where they are highly resilient but actually not very pro-poor. And it raises some questions for me for the whole labelling of the conference, but it's particularly appropriate, as I say, leaving aside Syria in relation to the Arab Spring.
Any more questions, madam? Please.
Hi, Susan Robertson from the International Development Research Center. Recently relocated to Cairo. So I'm responsible for the agriculture and food security research portfolio that IDRC funds in our regional office. And the question that I have for all of you up there, and this is a theme that's come up along the way, is the importance of institutions and the importance of funding or investment in agriculture. One of the things that I've heard from more senior people within our institution is that the agricultural research institutions in the region were established 50-odd years ago under a system that was very much based on the American system, with very specific research topics based on maize or rice or wheat cultivation. And what's needed now in terms of research in the region is much more forward-looking. There's very little capacity for value chain analysis, for example. So I would like to get your sense for what the state of the art is with agricultural research. It's a little bit a self-serving question, but it does also serve the conversation. And what are the gaps in the agricultural research institutions, and where are the opportunities? Thanks.
Hi, Eric Patrick with IFAD. First of all, thank you for a very excellent panel. It's quite stimulating, and thank you for being frank. I mean, I agree with the discussion about social contract, but I want to bring it back to the the topic of food security. Now, I'd like to know your thoughts about whether there could be contradictions between aspects of food security at different scales in the Arab world. So, for example, at the national scale, for many years there's been the argument that virtual water, so the importation of grains from North America, from Australia, has prevented crises, political crises in the Middle East. Now, that may, I don't know what the current thinking is about that political economy of water, but is the 2008 price shock seems to have perhaps undermined this idea that as long as we have income, that we can have food security mediated via the global trade. But then at the household level, even of course if we have national food security, what are the determinants that you see in terms of household food access, and to what degree has that contributed to this breakdown in the social contract and all the, if that is, in fact, is explanatory for the crisis? Because it seems to me at the national level that in the Middle East there's never been a shortage because of the ability to exchange oil or other resources for food, but at the household level there's been another dynamic. Thank you.
My name is Joanna. I'm from the Balsillie School of International Affairs, just outside of Toronto in Canada. And my question, it may not be a fair one, so I want to preface it with that. I'm interested in post-conflict Syria and what the panel thinks the greatest opportunity for food security is in that period.
Thank you. Okay, we will have another round of questions. I think we have some time. So we were asked about the Arab League. They are not there. They are not there. ESCO and the Arab League are trying to work together now, some sort of partnership. Maybe we can be like a technical secretariat for their work, but that's in the early stages still. The questions to you, to the panelists regarding the question of resilience, and Khalida, you were asked about the meaning of resilience and partnerships, and then do we reach policy makers? And how do we reach policymakers? I'll start with that, and then we'll take them one by one if it's okay. You want to start, Khalida?
Well, you volunteered me, I can start.
Yes.
I don't recall the question on the definition of resilience. Let me take what I got in my notes. First, for FAO, besides the fact that I've been saying there is no one size fits all, I think there is no one partner solution. This is obvious. In Yemen, we are now hosted by FAO. In Egypt also, we're going to be soon hosted by FAO. These are opportunities that we grab, but you're right, we need to be more forward-looking and to make sure that we complement each other. The challenge we have, and because we work with other agencies like Islamic Bank, the OFED, etc., the challenge is we are a bank, we have to deliver, and we have our rules, our procedures, so we have our board. So when you marry somebody, you need to adopt, there is a consensus, but when you are within a rigid, institution, not like mine, but others, it's difficult. But we need to find complementarity, as I was saying, because we, in IFAD, we want to embark in policy dialogue, but with our meager, not resources, but number of country offices, we cannot do it without the help of FAO, for example. This is for sure. And I see that the collaboration with FAO and IFAD is in the area of policy. So this is one question. The other question is about, if I may, somebody mentioned the issue of virtual water. And I wanted to take this question, if you allow me. In the region, what we have been doing, we have been looking into producing income, producing more food, but in a resource-efficient manner. When we talk about water, for example, we have a project in Jordan, which is financed by the Global Environment Facility, where we are supporting a new technology for irrigation to save water. So this is what we are trying to do, to produce more and better with less. This is what we call the concept of resource efficiency. Was there another question for me?
You are free to answer all the questions.
I want to leave
We
some
would
for my
love to know,
colleagues,
but I would love to hear all of the points
Yeah, yeah.
on all of the questions, if
Okay.
possible.
All right. Maybe on the DRC, I agree with you. We need a reform, but we need a reform not only from the research side. If I look at the value chain concept, we have difficulty in some countries to have it adopted. I mean, not talking about, we have Jordan, for example, we're under negotiation, but also if you take countries like Georgia, they don't want the value chain, they want to do irrigation. So I think if we want to have a mindset shift, we need the research to help us to change the mindset of the governments that want to apply the same approach with classical without taking the value chain throughout from production to consumption.